You come to me when I'm lonely. I take your hand and we go home. You cover me with your lovely.
Hello, and welcome to Sasha Graham's Ghost Stories by the Fire Season 2. I'm your host, Sasha Graham, and I'm broadcasting from the WHNY Western Catskill Radio, 93.6 FM on your radio dial. It's just after midnight, the witching hour. But right now, I'm inviting you to make some magic with me. I'm hoping you'll stay a spell, because I've been out in the wild collecting ghost stories just for you. I'm broadcasting tonight's show from the old fire tower in Wands Hollow, New York. So for you locals listening in, we have a crisp and clear night ahead of us. Temperatures look to be dipping down to the single digits, so grab an extra blanket and someone warm to snuggle up with. If you're out there on the road, use caution and be on the lookout for black ice and those dangerous curves that get slippery when wet. I have for you a trio of tales, all involving parents. The stories range from heartwarming to downright terrifying. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 19, Mother, May I Sleep with Danger. Winning over the affection of a romantic partner's parents is a big deal, especially at the beginning of a love affair. How many of us have nervously, excitedly met the parents of our beloved? But what happens when the parent in question is no longer in the physical realm? Is there some way to discover if a crossed-over parent approves of us? Our first storyteller received an unexpected answer to this very question. Holly Buzcek is a casting director who works in the theater district of Midtown Manhattan. Holly regaled us with the following story at a Sasha Graham's Ghost Stories by the Fire storytelling event at the Barrows and Tents Tasting Room on June 26, 2023. By the way, you'll often hear my voice at the microphone interacting with the people who share their stories at my crowdsourced ghost story events, as in the case in the following recording. Now here's Holly Buzcek with Skeleton Key.
How's everyone doing? This is a kind of paranormal love story. I feel a little bit bad that I'm telling it without my boyfriend here, because this is about when we first met, and we're still together now 10, 11 years later. So we met, and he lived in Manhattan on 31st, and I lived in Queens. I am a casting director by profession, and I had been out of town one weekend, all weekend long, doing a local casting in Pennsylvania. That was a really crazy weekend, very overwhelming, and we hit all kinds of traffic on the way home. So I was intending on going straight to Astoria one night after this weekend, but 2 o'clock came, 2:30 came, 3 o'clock came, and I got dropped off in Midtown Manhattan, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to go all the way back to Queens. So I have his key. We had just started dating. I want to say this was like 6 months into our relationship, and I'm like, well, he's not going to be upset if I just kind of creep in and like slide into bed next to him. This could have gone in a really bad direction, right? or a really good one. But so I'm like, I'm not gonna text him, I'm not gonna bother him, he's sleeping, but I'm just gonna kind of like go and like sneak in. So I'm going to his apartment on the 31st. It's a big, tall building. He's on the like 38th floor of this huge high-rise I take the elevator up. I'm walking down the hallway. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be really quiet. I literally pull out the key and go to put it in the door, and the door swings open, and there he is. And I was like, oh, hi. And he's like, hi. Okay, come in. And I'm like, this is super weird. But it was normal. He's like, all right, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're safe. Everything's good. I'm like, yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. We snuggle in. Fast forward a couple months later, I'm like, hey, I'm just really freaked out by the fact that I showed up at your door and you flung it open before I even had a chance to like text you, call you. Like, did you hear me coming down the hallway? Can you tell me like what was going on there? And he goes, it's actually really weird, Holly, and I don't want to scare you. And I was like, oh God. He goes, I'm sleeping and I hear this voice, sounds like my mother. Now his mother has passed the year before. Say, Kelly, Holly's here. And he was like, I thought I was dreaming, so I just like rolled over and kind of ignored it. And then I hear it again, and she sounds mad. Kelly, Holly is here. And he said, I'm just going to keep ignoring this because this is freaking me out. And she full on shouted at him, Kelly, Holly is here. And he like went to the door and opened it up, and there I was with a key in my hand, like. So when he told me that, I was like, yeah, that's a little freaky, but I will say I am super relieved that your mother likes me. I'm not gonna lie though, every time I was in that apartment, I was like, and even still, I'm sometimes like, hey, Mrs. Butler, hope you still like me, like just sort of like looking around, like I feel like she does like me, I feel like she's happy, and a funny thing, her birthday is 11/11, and we all know that's a magic number, right? So frequently we see, you know, when you get that message, you get that message. It's like every single time I look at the clock, I feel like it's 11/11. Like it's always a number that appears, and I just feel like it's her saying hello. So, and we're still together all these years later. Yeah. He's going to be mad that I told this story without him here, though.
None of us will tell him. Don't worry, your secret is safe with us. Thank you for sharing that. Magical numbers such as 333, 444, or, like Holly just mentioned, 1111, are repeating number sequences holding personal or spiritual significance. They are often viewed as omens or signs. And I always say that synchronicity is the universe's way of letting you know you've chosen well. But for people raised in Christian faiths or communities, repeating digits are often called angel numbers and interpreted as portents from the angelic realm. Speaking of Christianity, our next story involves a Spanish Catholic father and his beloved daughter named Jacqueline, who told the following tale at a Sasha Graham's Ghost Story event at the Barrows Intense Tasting Room in Brooklyn, New York on May 18th, 2021. Here is Jacqueline with The Weeping Statue.
Hi. So a few years ago, due to like financial issues, my father, myself, and my brother had to move in with my sister, and she owns a big home in Long Island, and they had an attic, and that's where my father and I stayed in like 2 separate rooms in this creepy old attic. But my dad is really religious, you know, like old school Spanish Catholic, and he has like a lot of like Catholic homes. They have like a shrine where they have like statues of the saints and things like that. My dad always prays there every day. But anyways, my dad had this really big statue of Jesus, and one day I was in the attic by myself, and you know, I walked through his room, and I'm not sure, I don't know if I hadn't seen it at first, but It was like kind of late in the day too, but not super late, so it wasn't that creepy. But I went and I grabbed something from my room, and as soon as I walked out, so this is my door, and then as soon as I opened my door, my dad's like shrine is like right over here. I just happened to look to the left of me, and his statue was missing a head. And the thing is, my dad doesn't move that statue. It just stays there. It like, he never touches it, or like, it's just, and it was, not only was it missing a head, this is a true story, it was bleeding. And I was like, at first I wasn't realize what I was seeing. I'm looking at it, and so it's just a stump, and there's like red liquid, like it looks wet. It's like a wet red liquid. And I was like, what the hell? That cannot be a good thing. So I, immediately like went downstairs. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna fucking stay here. And when my dad came home, I told my dad, I was like, so your statue is like headless and it's bleeding. And he's like, what? So he goes upstairs with me, and I show him, and he's old Catholic dad. He starts freaking out, and he's like, this is not good. This is a bad sign. This is a sign of like demonic energy. We never found a head. Don't know where it went. Like, I have no idea. And it wasn't like someone was in the household that would have played that kind of prank, because it was just like my older sister, her husband. She had like a 3-year-old, but the 3-year-old would never go up to the attic. And so my dad like went and got some holy water and like blessed the room. But several years later, not that long ago, my niece now is sleeping in the room where I used to sleep, and she tells me that like oftentimes at night her like bed will vibrate like violently, like someone's shaking her in her sleep. So she went and she had the room blessed again, and I don't think she's experienced anything since. But I never will forget the headless Jesus statue. It freaked me out. I don't know what my dad did with the statue. He probably took it to like a santeria, which is like these like religious shops where you can buy holy water and stuff. And I don't know what he did with it. I should ask him, but I'm sure he like disposed of it properly and didn't just throw Jesus in the trash, I have no idea, like, and it didn't look like there was a hole or anything that like would have caused like liquid to pop up. Also, it was like ceramic, so like I don't know how you can't like shake it and squeeze it. It just like was bloody. It was really weird. I know, like still freaks me out to this day.
Better the statue than anyone actually living in the home, right? Stories of weeping statues shedding tears of blood or oil are a cross-cultural phenomena. Some try to explain it away as a hoax or bacteria that produces pigment on said statues or icons, but to that, I say phooey. A mystery isn't meant to be explained. It's meant to be explored. What do you think about crying statues? I'm not sure what I think about them, but I do know I'm about to start crying in this fire tower if my space heater doesn't kick on soon. Oof. It's frigid in here. It's getting colder by the second. But I've got a beautiful view of the valley, and there are about 1 million crystal clear stars twinkling right now. So whether you are local or not, don't forget to look up tonight. That sky might take your breath away and remind you that perhaps the greatest mystery of all is why we are all floating through an infinite universe on a little space rock called Earth. Our final story includes the tale of a mother and daughter wrapped up in one of the most iconic pop cultural phenomena to ever hit the big screen back in 1973. It's a terrifying religious film, one that I don't need to see more than once, though I have. I'm speaking of the supernatural horror directed by William Friedkin, The Exorcist, starring Linda Blair. The interesting thing about exorcisms is they seem to be a worldwide phenomena. Manners of dealing with energetic parasites, performing spiritual cleansings, and the banishing of demons appear in every culture. I was sharing the tale of my unexpected front row seat to a real-life possession at a Ghost Stories by the Fire event on September 10th, 2022 at the Barrows and Tents Tasting Room, when our final storyteller came to the stage. First, you'll hear me, and then you'll hear Kinza with her story, Is There Someone Inside You? And between you and me, Kinza drops a lot of F-bombs in her story. So, to protect the innocent ears out there, we've used some BQE traffic honks to bleep out Kinza's colorful language. I wanted to share this crazy cool story. And I don't know if any of you have seen anything crazy happen at church, at choir, but my husband was doing a documentary for a Baptist church, and the day that I went that he was shooting, and I mean, it was amazing. This was out in Long Island, and there was like a house band, and people were dancing and singing, and like the energy was absolutely incredible. I wanted to cry the moment I walked in. It was so intense. But after about 30 minutes, I noticed and felt something very aggressive and very violent. And we looked over, and I said, oh my God, that woman is possessed. And there was a woman possessed by us. And for the rest of the service, while the service was happening, they were bringing her down and making her safe and exorcising the demon. And so after the service, we asked Pastor Derek, we were like, was that an exorcism? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and oftentimes, once that happens, they feel a lot better, but she got to pray. She got to pray. So I'm just curious if any of you guys have had any interesting experiences in religious sacred ceremony, perhaps doing, I don't know, some sort of psychedelic drugs and dancing. And I think that I see someone's got a hand up. What's your name?
Kinza.
What is it?
Kinza.
Welcome, Kinza.
I'm like the shortest one here. Hi, everyone. So I don't even know where to start, but I guess I'll start. It was one night. Me and my family, we were watching, that real horror movie that everybody freaking loves? The Possession one. There you go. So me and my whole family were watching the movie, right? Literally. Scary, whatever. I'm sitting there laughing it off like, haha, it's hilarious. She's laying on the bed. She's laughing. She's rising up in the air. Hilarious. We get to the end of the movie. My mom, I looked at her. She literally had like these black eyes. She's got these freaking black eyes, and she started literally like shaking. She laid on the floor, started shaking. It was real spooky. It was crazy. It was like the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my life. She started shaking. She started speaking in like real different tongues. It was like she got possessed herself through a movie. It was freaking weird. And mind you, my mom, she's into like Santeria and like, she's into ghosts and all that. So I think like, they say when you go and do Santeria, sometimes those spirits follow you home. So that's what I felt like. Maybe, like, that's what happened, and she lost her fucking mind. So here we were. So I'm trying to calm her down. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is insane. Mind you, I was 13 years old. So I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now? Whatever. We go over there. Everything turns out fine. I calmed her down. A couple days later, I'm sleeping. I sleep on on my stomach. So I'm sleeping. All of a sudden, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was freezing cold, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm still on my stomach. I'm like cold. I'm like, oh my God, what the is going on here? All of a sudden, I felt a hand go down my back, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm not opening my eyes. I am not getting up. There's no way this is real right now. I felt it again. Down my back, just like a hand, just go right down my back. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not getting up. But I had to. I was like, this can't be real. It's got to be a dream or something. I don't know. So I got up. I looked around, and all of a sudden, all I saw was like a dark shadow of a person just standing there in front of me. And I slept on a bunk bed when I was 13. I was on the top bunk. And all I saw was this tall figure right next to me, and I lost my shit. I started screaming and crying, and nobody heard me. My brothers were sleeping right beneath me. Nobody heard me. I asked everybody the next morning, did anybody hear me screaming? Like, did anybody, like, feel cold? Anything? Did anything go on? No, nothing. It happened, like, maybe, like, 2 or 3 years later, the same thing. I felt like a cold hand just down my back. It was so weird. Literally, me and my husband, we were at a hotel a couple of months ago. I want to say, like, 2 or 3 months ago. And we were sleeping. All of a sudden, he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he tapped me, and he's like, what's that shadow in the corner? And in my mind, I'm like, I've seen a shadow before, but I didn't tell him about this. So I'm just like, what are you talking about? It's nothing. I don't know. Go back to sleep. And I looked. I saw the same shadow, too. So I know whatever he saw is probably what I was seeing back in the day. And it's been following me for years, probably. I don't know. But that's probably what the it is. But yeah, that was my story, guys. Some weird.
Kinza's story of shadow figures is terrifying. But did you know that we all have a personal shadow? I'm not talking about the creepy shadow at the end of your bed or one slinking around behind your shower curtain. The shadow side of all of us contains all of the things we know about ourselves, but that we choose to hide away and not look at. I'm fascinated by the personal shadow, the way it keeps us looping in the same patterns and behaviors. So captivated by it that I created a tarot deck, the Dark Wood Tarot, to examine the shadowy things inside and around us. The Dark Wood Tarot is illustrated by the fabulous Abigail Larson and comes with a gorgeous full color book. It is available at bookshops everywhere or through my website, sashagraham.com. Speaking of my website, do you have an interesting ghost story? I'd love to hear it and maybe have you on the show. So drop me a line at sashagraham.com and put ghost stories in the subject line. That's all for now. Until next time, I'm Sasha Graham, signing off on WHNY Western Catskill Radio in Wands Hollow, New York on 93.6 FM. Stay spooky, stay cozy, and don't be afraid of the dark.